What is good, everyone? For this video, I'm bringing another installment of PhotoSynthesis, which is a series where I basically can cover anything related to photography. So any thoughts, topics, ideas, questions and topics that you may want me to discuss, I can take those and then turn them into a video for discussion. So this is installment number 2, and for this one, I'm going to cover the question, do photos improve with age? Now, this is a question I've seen discussed and debated before, and maybe another way to put it would be, do photographs gain interest with age? And it's even more probably relevant when it comes to genres like street photography, where you are capturing a specific time and period in public, unposed, natural life. So it's really a time capsule, and as they age, do they get more interesting just based on the fact that they are older? Now, I think most people, they would say yes, but some people would say no too. I've seen it. So we're going to break this down, and I'm going to try to cover the different ways that photos are affected when it comes to age. So first off, photographs, one of the main things they do is they give you a sense of time and place, especially if they're photographed in public places. So you have different visual cues, unique characteristics that are connected to a specific time. So it could be many different things. It could be the architecture, the style of the buildings, the signs. It could be devices like electronics. It could be cars. It definitely could be the style of the people, the clothes they wear. All these different types of things kind of have a connection to that time period. So when you look at the photo, if they have those different visual cues in there, it will give you that sense of time. So if you have a photo that has a strong sense of time, it can add meaning and feeling for some viewers. And really, when it comes to viewers, you have two categories when it comes to how the age will affect that viewer's reaction. You have viewers that lived during that time when the photo was taken, and you have viewers that didn't. And both of them can find added interest from the age of the photo, but in different ways. And when it comes to the viewers that lived during that time, well, they can actually relate to what's in that photo because they experienced and lived it, which can elicit different memories that they may have connected to what they see in that photo. When you think about it, memories are a big part of self, and we have a tendency to remember things in a more positive light than they may have even been when we experienced them. So when we see these photos that have these different visual cues that elicit different memories because we experienced that time, it's usually going to have a positive effect. And when it comes to photos, other than maybe video, there's really nothing else that can really trigger and bring out those memories that we have, because it gives you them in picture format. So while the time is lost, those photos can almost render those lost moments in real time. And just having those memories is going to create different feelings, thoughts, and it's just something you don't have when it comes to photos that were taken that day. On the flip side, you have viewers that didn't live during that time. So since they didn't experience it, they can't really relate, and they're not going to have memories tied to it. But at the same time, it's still going to have somewhat of an effect on them because they get to see a past time that they never were able to see in reality in their lived experiences, which is something new, it's unique, it's interesting. People are curious, and they like to see those past periods of time. It creates somewhat of a nostalgia effect, which we're going to talk about in a little bit in more depth. But just seeing those different things, it's one of the main ways we can somewhat experience something that we were never able to experience in real life. And also, even if that scene and everything in the scene was normal back then, today it won't be normal. So to that viewer that never experienced that, it's going to be very unique. Even though it wasn't unique in the past, it's going to be unique to their eyes because they never actually saw things like this before. So all that will add interest to the viewer. And much of what I've talked about is connected to the feeling of nostalgia. And there's a nostalgia effect. And here I have a definition of nostalgia. Nostalgia is a sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or place with happy personal associations. So older photos can communicate this nostalgia and romanticize cultural time and places. And when it comes to romanticizing things, that means we tend to make things seem better than they actually were, which is going to make things more interesting than they actually were too. So it can have this effect just by the sheer fact that it's older, and it creates this nostalgia effect. Historical or older photos, they feed that nostalgia, and they can render long gone moments somewhat real. And they can do another thing too, because with that added time, even more information can be gained from that. So take, for example, if you have a photo taken in East Germany. So back at the time, it was East Germany, obviously, now it's not. So that can have, just that information can elicit different connections from the Berlin Wall falling down, all types of different things, just because of all the things we know that happened and all the changes that happened since. So you can have historical nostalgia or autobiographical nostalgia, where it's more about your own experiences. So all these different effects for most viewers can add interest. So that's really the main things that age does when it comes to a photo. Now, does that make the photo better? Well, if it's better or not, that's kind of up to opinion. Now, what I think is a photo should be good no matter what. So I don't think with time that you can necessarily make a bad photo good. You can make it more interesting, just because you could have just straight up, people standing there doing nothing, but just by the fact that they're wearing older clothes and the background's older, it's probably going to be more interesting than when it was first taken. But I think you want the photo still to be interesting and then have that added benefit of the age. But really, it's hard to argue against the positives that age can have on a photo. For one of the greatest strengths, maybe the greatest strength of a photo, is it freezes that time and place, and that can't be seen again. So other than in a video, but still, even that's different. You have that time and place frozen in that photograph. And that makes it unique and special, because that's really the only way you can see it. And that's also going to make what's in that frame more unique now. It also gives you something to experience or learn through just by looking at that photo, because you can't experience in real life anymore. And it can trigger different feelings, thoughts, memories, all types of things, just by the fact that it's an older photo. And when it comes to photos, if you can feel something, then you have something. So after going through all that, I think it's pretty obvious that age can add interest to a photo, at least in the viewer's eyes when they see it. And when it comes to today, can any of this information help you in the photos you make today? Well, really, you should be just focused on creating the most interesting photo you can today. But there are some things maybe you can think about. For one, what's normal now might not be normal in the future. So maybe you don't want to avoid all the things that you feel like are boring or just too normal today. You just see it too often, like, for example, obviously phones or cars, different things like that, where I know a lot of photographers, even myself sometimes, may avoid those certain things because we see them all the time, so it's not interesting to us. But maybe it will be interesting in the future. If you look at older photos, you see those older cars, they're usually not a bother. Sometimes they can add interest. Or if you see an older phone booth, things like this, they were very common back in the day, but now they're not. So now they're somewhat interesting. So you don't want that to be maybe the focus of the photo, but maybe you don't want to avoid it either. You never know what's going to be interesting tomorrow. So that brings me to the end of photosynthesis number 2. Do photos improve with age? Let me know your thoughts. Tell me what you think. That's what these photosynthesis series are for, just to discuss anything. And then also let me know if you want to hear anything else discussed in this series. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Cheers.